Are we beyond the Star Wars episodes? How many episodes were there of that whole franchise?
Well, there were.
If you count Rogue One.
Do you count like the Han Solo movie too?
Yeah, I think.
And then what about like the Boba Fett movie?
What the hell?
Hello, I am Michael Gray.
And I'm Erin Green.
And welcome to Middleish, a podcast about moderation in all things. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. I'm good.
I
got a haircut.
I see that. Yeah,
I can run
now
so fast right now.
You hate running, don't you?
Well, because usually my hair is longer, I'm slower. But now I'm real fast.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I'm real fast
sense.
for a few days. Yeah.
You're real fast for a few days until it grows out. I just keep thinking that maybe, I don't know if you're cutting it yourself or if Kat's cutting it or if you're going somewhere, but I just keep thinking you keep getting bored and you're just like taking a little more off and a little more off. And then each week I'm going to be like, pretty soon you're bald. And
just bald.
Then you're really fast.
Real fast. Real fast. No, this is actually like the first like proper haircut I've got since everything started. Kathleen cut it twice, I think. We don't have clippers or anything, so she was like trying to do scissors and get it short as she can. But her stepdad is a hairstylist, and he came over last night and cut all of our hair. So it was like the first like legitimate real hair. So
feels good, huh?
Feels great.
Yeah. It looks good.
Thank you.
It's nice. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I threatened to cut Matt's hair, and I used to cut my brother's hair and a bunch of friends in high school, and so I feel pretty competent. It's not like they come out looking like a weed whacker, got a hold of their head, chunks missing. Although I did nick my brother's ear once. I felt so horrible. Brian, if you're listening, I still feel bad about that. It didn't draw blood, but man, he like cringed.
Yeah.
Anyway, I offered to cut Matt's hair. Yeah. I know this is like a bad segue. I just nicked my brother's ear and I offered to cut Matt's hair.
Offered.
And it went so far as just me like cleaning up his neck, and around the ears and just kind of because we don't have clippers either. And it was getting close to that point where he could actually go in for a haircut. But it's one of those things you just don't think about too much until you really need one and you can't get a proper one.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. It was like, all right. I mean, she did a great job though. I mean, she just couldn't get it as short as I typically like it without clippers. But yeah. So how's your week going? Good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Any crazy rides or runs or anything?
No, I'm done with the Trails Challenge. So
right. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was really fun for the most part. There were some trails that I'm just like, I don't really have the desire to do that again. But
sure.
It's 170 miles, but you have like 4 weeks to do it. But in order to put all the segments together, like my friend who ran it, I think ended up doing like 240 some miles just to get all the segments. Yeah. So I have to add that up. Matt keeps saying that they send out a little spreadsheet or whatever, so you can geek out on the numbers once that comes out. But I'm curious how much, because I did several rides and runs from my house, and I did some that I connected and kind of re-rode trails again, and so it'll be interesting to see my final total. Yeah. I think it took me just over 2 weeks. Yeah. It's definitely over 170, but went for a nice ride this morning, which was just beautiful. I have a meaning in the mundane based on the ride this morning. Actually, I had a couple others that I was thinking about, and then this morning was like, oh, that takes the cake. Yeah. So,
well, I already have mine too. So
look at you,
or do
overachiever.
I might be lying.
Speaking of overachieving, my making eggs this morning endeavor, when I texted you, I wasn't sure if you would kind of understand what was going on. I texted Michael this morning because I went for my ride. I had my breakfast before my ride, and then I eat a little something after. And I was kind of watching the clock tick away, and I was like, okay, I have 9 minutes before I get on to record with Michael. And I remembered that there was a Facebook post or something, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, that was talking about the scramble he made where it was like literally it took like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something. And I was like, I've got time to do this. So I throw some spinach in a pan and I start scrambling, and 8 minutes later, it's ready to eat and it's time for me to get on record with Michael. So I hurried. I was like, I could just like eat straight out of the pan and like, I mean, gobble it down and like hurry up and get over here with spinach in my teeth or whatever.
I think you should have. I think you should have did it while we're recording. Frying pan and then like just like a wooden spoon and just.
I don't know if people would appreciate the chewing into the mic.
Oh, I think you underestimate them. I think we all would have enjoyed that very much.
People give your feedback if you want us eating on this podcast, or if you don't, let us know.
Chew, chew, chew.
But it was a really quick like text where I realized, okay, I made the cutoff to like actually make the eggs in due time, but I don't have time to eat this.
And so I got to eat them.
Yeah, it was a very quick, not mindful meal, but at least I didn't eat out of the pan.
That's right.
That was my
you made something quick and healthy, and that's a win.
Yeah.
And because I'm so patient, like it was not an issue at all. So patient.
He did laugh at me over text. There was an LOL thrown out there, so
it's true.
I think by now we know which one of us is running late. Me.
Which is kind of funny because if you take our personalities into consideration.
Oh yeah.
Like I should be like the late one, like, hold on, let me get my socks, or you know what I mean? Like so it's kind of funny.
Well, there have been times when you're like, hold on, I'm gonna go refill my coffee, or hold on, I'm gonna,
let me go pee
whatever.
Real quick.
Like yeah, exactly. I gotta pee. But
that's true.
No, and I'm the one that like finds the the need to create spreadsheets and tables and bullshit to like organize my brain thoughts. But then I'm also the one that's like, 5 minutes, I'll be 5 minutes late, running around, hair on fire.
I know Erin has these elaborate, well done, organized spreadsheets, and I have like scribbles on paper. It's crossed out and asterisks by like, oh, remember to do this one today.
That works though. That works. I mean, you should see my little lists that I keep are not super organized. They're just kind of sticky notes on my desk. But I don't know that whenever I'm preparing, I guess to be seen in a professional capacity a little bit more, and like just to organize my thoughts. And even though this is recorded, a week in advance before we release it, and we can edit or we can re-record if it sucks or whatever, which we don't, which I'm happy with, it's authentic. When we do this, I kind of feel like, when I'm preparing for a presentation, like I just want to make sure like, okay, my thoughts are organized. I know my, my path here that I'm going to go through for the talk. So hence all of the tables and spreadsheets and stuff.
Yeah. I do that as well for talks. It's just, I'm not near as adept with tables. Well, a lot of it is just like, I just haven't done it. And so I have like, I'll have like a heading and then like bullet points. I can do that.
Michael was funny the first time that we were kind of going through like, what topics would we talk about? And, what would we, do on this podcast? And let's start kind of putting things together. I create this whole table with like subtopics and like we could go in this direction and blah, 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 and all this shit. And Michael emails me back and is like, whoa,
this is impressive.
This isn't what I had in mind. I'm like, am I overthinking this? Am I overdoing it?
No, it's great. It's just, I had like a Word document with, just bullet points or something. Yeah. But that's how I do. Yeah.
It's nice. We balance each other out, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Yin and yang.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So before we get into today's topic, I just want to say, to anyone listening or watching that if you missed last week's episode with our guest Brian Fretwell, episode 7, right?
7.
7.
Yeah.
I would just really encourage you to go back and listen or watch that, because he just had just so many fantastic insights into kind of why we do what we do, from a, I guess, neurological standpoint, like why we're hardwired in certain ways and how that plays out into habits and routines and that kind of stuff. And I just feel like it was full of gold. So if you missed that, I would really encourage you to check that one out.
Yeah. It's a bit longer than our typical recording.
About an hour and a half, I think.
But like Michael said, it's so insightful. For me, I find it fascinating to sort of think about why we respond the way we do, or to just kind of be enlightened as to how our brain is kind of receiving and processing certain information. And Brian has just a wealth of knowledge in that area. And so very much that neurobiology of decision making and, establishing beliefs and mindset.
Yeah.
And he, when we first asked him to be on, he has been doing a lot of work in kind of social connection and loneliness through this whole coronavirus situation, which I can definitely relate to, because now that I'm working from home, which was a planned endeavor for me, I'm struggling a little bit with that loneliness and that disconnect and feeling forgotten in a lot of ways, because you just don't have that social outreach and connection. So I would love to have him back on to talk more about that. And for those of you listening or watching, if you have interest in that kind of thing, please let us know, because we want to bring conversations that are applicable to all of you.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, I completely agree. And it's funny that we had this very specific thing we were going to talk to him about, and then we didn't even touch it.
Well, but that's the cool thing, is like you can go in so many different directions.
Yep.
And I kept thinking like, oh, I want to ask him more about this, but then we're going to get derailed.
Yeah. There was a bunch of stuff I left on the table, questions I had for him, or kind of responses to things he said. I was just like, okay, just set it down, because we need to, I feel like we're going here and don't want to derail it too much. But it was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And thank you to everybody who's been leaving comments, submitting questions. We've had some really great, I would say, conversation topics, like not really specific questions, but almost like feedback, like, oh, I listened to this and this is what I'm thinking, or this is what my barriers are, so we really appreciate that. And that's what we envision for this, is to have it be kind of a springboard for your own conversations and your own, kind of inquisition into behavior change and health and yourself. So keep them coming.
Yeah, please do. Because I think, I think for me, and I'm sure for you too, one of the biggest things that happens is when we get that kind of feedback, like it's not just, hey, I like this, but it's like, here's what this made me think of, or, that kind of stuff. Like Erin and I aren't done, right? Like we haven't arrived and learned everything that we need to know, right? Like,
work in progress.
You know what I mean? Like we've been doing this for 12 years. We know a lot, but we also probably think about things pretty differently than we did 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And 3 or 5 years from now, we're going to again. So it's like we're still developing. And so when you guys send us those kind of like, more in-depth feedback about like how it resonates with you, like it gets us churning, and it forces us to look at things from different ways, and it teaches us things, that we may miss over because we live in a certain world and we make assumptions, and that kind of stuff of what people know or how people understand the stuff we're talking about. And so when we get that feedback, I feel like it makes the podcast better. But it also, for me, just like it makes me better at my job. It makes me better at what I do, and it just helps us, I think, evolve and grow and that kind of stuff. So it's incredibly appreciated.
Yeah.
when you take time to give that kind of feedback. So, and then I'll just tack this on here instead of saying it at the end. Since you're right in the middle of saying subscribe, share it, just do all that stuff. We really are trying to get this thing going, and that kind of support from you guys is how word gets out and that kind of stuff. So we appreciate you doing that. And we won't get upset if you pause this for a second and do that real quick and then come back to talk to us again.
Yeah, because as we know, Michael's very patient.
I
He's
am
very
so patient.
He'll hang out and just drink his Care Bear coffee when you for those of you who aren't watching and you're listening, he has an adorable little Care Bear mug that I saw last time we recorded, and I was like, dang it, I meant to ask you about that. Like, is that Care Bear?
It is.
And
It's
so,
Funshine Bear. If you know your Care Bears.
Funshine with an
Funshine
F.
Bear. Let me get it up there.
Funshine.
Yeah, that's Funshine Bear. I've had this since I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 maybe.
Oh, no kidding.
It's survived that long, surprisingly.
Wow. Be gentle with it, right?
Yeah, and I think I
Protect it.
kind of lost it for a while. Or maybe my mom had it for a while. And I don't know, I got it back in the last several years, and I use it all the time. Yeah.
I
was a big Care
loved,
Bear fan.
oh my gosh, I loved the Care Bears growing up.
Mhm.
And I had one of my, it's actually a race story, but because I was such a Care Bear fan, it's that like cheerful,
Mhm.
loving kind of like community friend group kind of memory that I just grew up
Yeah.
with. Like the Care Bears always just were like this lovely group of
Mhm.
happiness, and like they all had their roles, like even wasn't there one that had like a rain cloud on his belly,
Mhm.
and even
Mhm.
he could contribute right to the
Mhm.
whole greater good.
Mhm.
So I was racing Ironman Boulder, um I don't know, 2017 maybe, and a couple of my really good friends, my first Boise friends actually, had moved to Boulder a couple years before, and they were down there to cheer me on. And my good friend Stacy, who was like my first running buddy here in Boise, showed me the trails, and just a wonderful, lovely person who basically embodies that, like she just has this happy voice, and like she does not care how loud she is cheering, like by damn if you're her friend, like she's out there. And I wrote in my race report that as I was running, I think it was my second lap coming in on the marathon, so like you're tanked, right, and you're just like
Mhm.
in this really dark place, and you're searching for like anything to kind of keep you going or pull you out of it. And I hear through the crowd of just like walls of people, yeah, go, Erin! Like she's just like this high pitched, just like loud as hell voice. And
Mhm.
it felt like a Care Bear stare
Right?
to me coming through the crowd, because it was just like this bright light of cheer
Mhm.
and love and all this stuff. It was
Mhm.
so wild. And so that's kind of like one of my favorite memories for like a friend coming to visit is,
That's
or to
awesome.
come cheer me on during a race, is Stacy's Care Bear stare that she gave
Mhm.
me at, at
Yep.
Ironman Boulder.
Yep. I have a friend that does the same thing. He just
Yeah.
has this ability to, like, if you're kind of down, he just like shoots love at you, just tells you how wonderful you are and what a great
I
friend you
know.
are. And that's what we call it. We call it the Care Bear stare. Like, yeah, I
It's
got Care Bear
awesome.
stared by John today. I feel a lot better. You know, it's
I
awesome.
love it. I
Yeah.
would, maybe that'll be my mission now, is to be like a Care Bear stare for
Hmm.
some people. And not like in a creepy way, like stare. That kind of sounds like
Yeah.
you will be happy, right? Like creeper. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you
If
feel loved right now? Do you feel loved?
yeah, but just being that cheerful. And I have been told by people that, like, shine your light in your little corner of the world, especially
Hmm.
when things are feeling, I mean, the world can be dark
Hmm.
right now if you
Hmm.
kind of allow too much of that um to kind of, I
Yeah.
don't know, weigh on you, or to just like overwhelm your life. And so if you just focus on your little corner of the world and be that Care Bearer
Yep.
for people.
Yep. Care Bear stare. The Care Bear stare. Who are you going to Care Bear stare this week?
I love it.
It's a
Yeah.
good
Make that
question.
your mission, everybody.
Right. Go Care Bear stare somebody.
Look for your Care Bear stare moment. And make sure that your spouse doesn't get pissed at you in the meantime. Like, what the hell is the matter with you? Just let me be mad.
Right. Yeah. 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 Maybe not spouses or, significant others or anything. Yeah. Someone else.
Care Bear stare your dog for practice and just
There
see
you
if
go.
that works.
Although to be fair, I think dogs probably, that's most of what they do is Care Bear stare, right?
Exactly. Right?
They just love you and just shoot love at you
Yeah.
and just make you feel better. And yeah.
Cats, on the other hand, have your like creeper stare that you just gave us.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Human, pet me, or don't,
Right. Yeah.
depending on my mood.
I could care less about you. Yeah. All right. Well,
What's our topic?
we do have a topic today. What's your mug say? What's your mug? Kind people are my kind of people. Oh, there you go.
It's a great mug for
It
today's
is.
topic, don't you
It
think?
really is. Because
Yeah.
we're talking about body kindness.
I know.
Loving yourself and stuff, but not in like a cheesy self-help way.
Yeah. And in more of a PG rated kind of way.
Yes. Yes. This is not the after dark version of Middleish.
Yeah. We'll save that for another time.
Yeah, that'll be a different episode.
Yeah. Body kindness. I don't know that I have like a definition of it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But I think for me, it comes from a place of when I work with clients on health in general. I mean, physical health is a lot of the reason why people come to see you or I, like getting healthier through exercise or diet or, whatever. Body kindness really helps address some of the other aspects of health too. So not just the physical side,
Right.
but also kind of melding into that mental and emotional, psychological side.
Right.
And I think it comes from when I see clients that really want to achieve something physically, like a weight loss is a huge one, but just, I don't know, achieving, great fitness gains or, they have sports goals or athletic goals. I see a lot of triathletes, cyclists. I think there's this belief that you have to be hard on yourself all the time in order to force your body into this change or to achieve those things. And I have found that more often than not, whenever you're too hard on yourself, it actually does the opposite, where you're not able to achieve the right things. And I'll often ask people, I notice these thoughts or the things you say about yourself or your body, things you hate about your body, things you're mad that your body won't do for you or whatever. How's that working for you? How is that helping you? Are these thoughts helping you?
Right.
And I think that's a hard thing for people to answer because no, usually, being angry at your body or speaking unkindly about your body isn't really helpful. But the fear is if I don't do that, then does that mean I'm not working hard enough or does that mean I'm not focused enough?
Right. Right.
So,
and I think a lot of that boils down to like, where is that coming from? I think we kind of assume, like you're saying, like I've got to be hard on myself and have these really high expectations and high demands on myself, and I've got to meet them. And this is how I love and take care of my body. But again, I think we talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago. Like it's not just about the body, right? Like health isn't just about physically, it's about how we view ourselves, how we're taxed emotionally and mentally and how it fits in our lives and that kind of stuff. But I think just as our work that is just as dedicated to being a better person, being a healthier person, being kind of like a a more evolved version of you or whatever, like you 2.0, whatever it is, can be achieved through a lot kinder means,
Yeah.
and coming from a place of like, oh, I hate that my body can't do this or is this, and so I have to change it, versus like, man, I really like myself and I love myself for who I am and I enjoy me, right? And I want the best for my body. I know that I'm capable of more.
Yeah.
I know that I'm capable of taking care of myself better, of celebrating what my body can do in better ways, and I love myself enough to explore the parts of me that are unknown, so that I
Right.
mean I it's going to sound super like self-helpy and cheesy, but it's like, what's your potential? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, what is your potential as you? And I think when you really love yourself, you realize, okay, I have things to offer in this world, and there are things that I do exceptionally well, and there are parts of me that are exceptional, and I want to explore those and grow those and cultivate those and see, what am I really capable of? And that's a way to come at that whole like changing yourself from a place that's just like rich in like caring about you and fostering.
Self-love and
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure, it really is.
And I think when you're describing like, instead of focusing on all the parts you want to change, and these are all the parts that I dislike and that I loathe and
Mm-hmm.
I wish were different, focusing a little more on these are the parts I really love about myself, and this is where I see myself, you know, capable of being, and so I'm going to do this.
Right.
And that's a very different perspective than, a lot of times with like eating in particular and diets and people that come to me really seeking weight loss and like what's the right way to eat, which,
Right.
newsflash, there is no right or wrong way.
Right. Put the
um
food in your mouth. That's the right way.
yeah,
Yeah.
just eat
Don't
it,
put it
just
anywhere else.
eat.
That's the wrong way. There you
In
go.
the mouth. Done. Podcast done.
There's the secret.
That was profound, Michael. Put
Yep.
the
We're
food in
done.
your mouth,
We're done. Yeah,
nowhere
we have nothing
else.
else to talk about.
So when people come to me and they're asking about, diet and nutrition and what's the right or wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think there's almost this belief that they have to sort of punish themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that might even be like kind of a harsh word to use, but I really like, if you boil it down to, it's very basic nature, people kind of feel like it has to be unenjoyable or punishment. It's
Right.
not like a celebration of health and my body and thanking my body. I use that term a lot when I talk to athletes. It's
Mm-hmm.
time to thank your body and show appreciation for everything it just did for you, because you just put
Mm-hmm.
it through this, crazy training session, or, you just did a race. It's time
Mm-hmm.
to thank your body.
Right.
And by thanking it, we do good nutrition, we enjoy food, we speak kindly about how your
Mm-hmm.
body is accepting the food. There's all these different things, different facets. But
Right.
when people view dieting or eating healthy, or making changes to their eating patterns as punishment, or as this
Mm-hmm.
is, what I should be doing because my body has, is too fat, or it's not, fitting into my clothes the same way, or I don't have muscle definition, or whatever, all these things you're picking apart about your body, that's a very negative place to come from when you're approaching food, fitness, health in general.
Right.
So, I invite people to kind of open their minds to maybe recognizing some of these thoughts in themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe shifting that a little bit.
Right. And here's I think just a really important takeaway with all of this. Like, I want everyone to hear this. Like, six pack will not make you happy.
Oh,
Right.
amen.
Like
Amen.
like losing that 20 or 30 pounds or fitting into, whatever dress, like that's not going to make you happy. It may in the moment, and it can be awesome and something absolutely worth celebrating. I'm not minimizing having those goals, because I think they can be absolutely fantastic. And I get super excited when clients meet those goals, and it's amazing, right? But that's also like short-lived, right? And I think a lot of that's the problem, is like, I hate myself or my body so much that I have to I have to go at war with it to get it to a place where it's
Yeah.
lovable.
Yeah.
And it's like, the harsh reality is that will not happen. If that's your plan, you're screwed. I mean, I think it's that cut and dry. You really are, because there's other things internally that are causing that really negative relationship with you. And it's not really
Hmm.
about your body. It's, feelings of value or self-worth or, you know, crap from childhood. There's a lot of things that could go into that. And you're still going to believe those things about yourself
Hmm.
when you're 20 pounds lighter or when you fit into whatever
Yeah.
dress or you have a six pack. Like those things don't just go away.
Right. That physical change is very short lived in terms of the emotional and
Mm-hmm.
psychological boost it provides.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this over and over again, where whether it's just, somebody who generally wants weight loss or for their body to look better, fit into clothes better, they get that boost, that short lived kind of, yeah, I made it, this is such an achievement. But if they have not done the work
Mm-hmm.
behind the scenes in
Mm-hmm.
really appreciating and approaching this from a balanced,
Yeah.
kind place for themselves and like a place of kind of self-love and acceptance, it's like this precipice that you
Mm-hmm.
reach, and then there's this fear that, okay, if I don't hang on to this weight loss, or if I don't hang on to this new body, this new physical transformation,
Mm-hmm.
then what am I?
Mm-hmm.
Then am I, I'm unlovable, or I have failed, or, we get into that slide that we've talked about in previous episodes,
Yeah.
that kind of all or none type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I see this with athletes too a lot when they have these very specific leanness goals. And it's justified by saying, well, that's how I can reach my, performance goals. That's how I can
Right.
reach, race weight, or that's,
Right.
lighter is faster, and all of these different, um, with cycling, if the watts per kilo is a big thing that people kind of
Mm-hmm.
get hung up on, this belief that they have to change their physical body.
Right.
Um, in my experience, though, there is a lot to be gained by really like digging into appreciating what your body does for
Mm-hmm.
you through that
Mm-hmm.
like grueling training process, instead of feeling like you have to punish it even further,
Right.
with restrictive eating, or like always achieving more, always reaching for more, never feeling um satisfied isn't even the word, I guess, like accepting of
Mm-hmm.
and like embracing your
Mm-hmm.
your body and everything it does for you. I
Right.
think has a big place in athletic performance as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so common for us to think like, again, just in extremes, like we do with so many things, right? Like either my body is exceptional or it's worthless, right? And
Right. Right.
it's like that's kind of like the extremes people live in. Like I hate my body and everything about it, and it does nothing for me. And I need to get over to the other side where it's exceptional and it's like this high performance like running machine, right? Like it's maximum potential physically. And it's like, one, most of us are never going to experience what our maximum potential physically is.
Yeah.
Like, we're just
It's hard to
not,
do.
because yeah, we're not gonna push ourselves to be this ultra elite version of ourselves as far as our physical abilities go. But on the other hand, it's like on the other end of the spectrum, it's like we just kind of sit with like, well, my body's just worthless, it doesn't do anything of value for me. And I think this is something I've done before with some clients. I think it can be a really good exercise in um, just like, so I'm thinking about a specific situation with a client I had who's a mom, and she was talking about just her frustrations with her body and just her dissatisfaction with where she was, and um, the weight she was at and how she felt and all that kind of stuff. And so I told her, I said, let's do this. Why don't we come up with three things that you're really grateful for, that your body has allowed you to do or given to you, or that it's capable of doing. And this exercise was really hard for her at first to even
Yeah.
come up with anything, which I think probably for a
Totally.
lot of people it is. But she came up with things like, one of the examples was like, it gave me my two kids.
Yeah.
This body, regardless of what it is, it's given me these two children who have enriched my life beyond belief, and I love more than I ever expected, and so we just had these things, these three things that every day, that was just kind of part of her plan. It's like, I'm just going to recognize that my body has given me these, or I'm thankful that my body is able to do this, regardless of where I'm at physically or
Mm-hmm.
how I feel about my body aside from those things. And I think something like that can be a really good exercise. And I don't know if you're listening, do this at home. You know what I mean? Come up with some things and just read those, kind of like a little mantra every day. My body allows me to, my body's giving me this, because I think we spend so much time negatively speaking about our bodies that then we believe that's all our body is. And if we can
Yeah.
recognize, but even if I feel this way, even if I'm unhappy with where I'm at, it still allows this and this and this, or it still gives me this and this and this. And then we can begin to see, oh, it's not one or the other. I can not like things about my body and also be very appreciative for things it
Right.
has done or is currently doing for me.
That's so good. And I was actually going to bring up the same kind of,
Oh yeah.
self development activity or exercise that I
Hmm.
do with people too.
I did it
Um,
first, just for the record.
Michael wins.
Yeah, I win.
It's a competition. um, so here's kind of a funny, my own personal development in that realm.
Hmm.
I don't remember what season it was in triathlon, but I found myself getting into that mindset that every time I didn't nail a workout, um, which I was reminded all the time, this is not pass fail, but hello, even Erin had trouble with Middleish concepts. Still does. I still do.
Yep. Same here.
So I would get into this spiral of like, if I didn't totally nail the workout, I would just be like so pissed, and it would come out in my belief about my body. How do I change my physiology? How do I, maybe I do need to like change my weight or my diet or something. I was always looking for this like change, instead of exactly what you're saying,
Mhm.
appreciating what, I mean, geez, I didn't hit maybe the numbers exactly or the paces exactly, but holy crap, you just did this like
Right.
insane workout and your body just did this and you like command it to do these things. I mean,
Mhm.
I almost felt it was almost like brain and body kind of like at war with each other, right? So I
Right.
had to sort of reconcile that. And I found a body part that I could thank no matter what. And I know this
Mhm.
totally sounds cheesy, you guys, but it worked for me.
Mhm.
And it was my feet. And I kind of looked at them as these like poor little, victims of what I would like command them to do every day.
The abuse.
2 a days, 3 a days, my poor feet, and
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, they would carry me through an early morning run, a really hard session. They'd carry me around the house to get ready for work. Then I'd go to work and up and down, walking around all day, squatting, whatever, bending them in different ways. And I just kind of had this like, I know I'm kind of getting into the details here, but it really changed my perspective on like really just thanking my feet for so when I'd get
Mhm.
into that negative spiral and I was just like, shit, I can't, I'm not getting this workout, or I'm too tired, or my body's just
Mhm.
not responding, my swim sucks, whatever, I didn't nail that thing. I would
Mhm.
just look down at my feet and be like, thank you, feet. Thank
Yeah.
you for what for everything you've done. And for me, that also kind of removed me from that very narrow scope
Mhm.
of athletic achievement that I was
Right.
focused on. So much of my time was focused on triathlon, training, racing, how I could get better in that realm. And I would like, there were days when I would just wholly ignore all of the other
Mhm.
things that made me me.
Mhm.
So it was like my feet were kind of a metaphor for that. Like they carried me through my day.
Right.
I mean, no matter what,
Yeah.
they are like put on demand all day,
Yeah.
every day. And so that was my own kind of experience with really focusing in on like, how can you thank a part of your body
Mhm.
that I never look on with disdain or disgust or dissatisfaction.
Right.
Um, And so, yeah, I still kind of use that to this day. And there were times when I would, really nail a workout, and I would just audibly at the end of it, I would just say, thank you. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, whatever it may be, maybe I'm thanking the universe, maybe I'm,
Mm-hmm.
thanking a higher power. But a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times it was just thanking my body and this for being here in this moment and doing what I commanded it to do.
Right. Yeah. I like that a lot. I think that's really good. I like what you said too about like you just had a narrow scope, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what a lot of us do too, is we have this narrow scope, this narrow version of ourselves. Like we have all this potential and possibility, and we go like, nope, it's got to be like this little thing right here. Like it has to look like that for me to be worthwhile or lovable or happy with myself or have value or whatever.
Yeah. And
And
usually that thing we're so focused on is the thing we think needs to change or needs to be different. It's like that thing we're unhappy with.
right,
That's what
right,
you get focused on.
exactly. And it's like, I've got to fix this because everyone who has this fixed is obviously so happy, right? Like everyone who fits into whatever pant size or, you know, weighs the same as they weighed in high school, obviously their lives are amazing and there's nothing wrong with them, and we kind of make these like,
Obviously.
well, I'm being a bit dramatic about it, but at the same time, it's like that's what we get a lot when people are talking to us. It's like they never say that, but there's this assumption that if I can just be that, if I can just somehow look kind of like the people on magazine covers, my life will be so much better, you
Mhm.
know? And it's like, first of all, like, nothing about people on the magazine covers or, the person you see at the park or whatever. We just make these assumptions about them, but you're also like discounting so much about what makes you you and what makes you unique and what about you that this world needs, right? And I guarantee there's nothing this world needs from you that you're going to be able to provide better if you weigh less.
Right. Amen to
You know
that.
what I mean?
Say that again
Okay.
for the
Let's see if I
people in the
can.
back.
See if I can. There's nothing about you that this world needs that you can provide in a better way if you weigh less.
Great.
you know I never thought that before. That's a good thought.
It's a good one.
But
Write down quotes from Michael.
right, but just it's like, I mean, our physical bodies, like, we need to take care of them. It's important because it it
Yeah.
it plays out in so many ways, right? It affects us, what we're able to do, how we're able to enjoy life, and that kind of stuff. Like, it's really important, and I'm not discounting that in any way, but it's just like, most of us, what we have to offer is not related to that at all. You know what I mean? And probably all of us, right? It's not like it's limited or hindered because I need to lose 20 pounds. And, and but we put so much emphasis on that. This is what we bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
My thin body is what I have to offer. It's like, this doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
you know
Yeah.
like, what you have to offer the world is there regardless of what you're physically capable of doing or what your body looks like or what size you are. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with that. And I'm much more interested in what do people have to offer to the world, and like, how does my journey through like becoming a healthier person enhance and allow me to explore and find out what that potential is. And because I really think most of the time these journeys, like, it just makes us better people because we learn so much about ourselves and we have to face so much about what's been limiting us, that then what we have to offer others as far as like making the world a richer place, like, is enhanced by that because of those
Yeah.
lessons, not because of the weight loss, you
Yeah.
know?
And that's a scary thing to confront too. Those
Mhm.
things that you're learning about yourself along the way.
Mhm.
And to touch on one of the things you mentioned kind of at the beginning is that self-worth that is very much tied to body kindness, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people don't believe they're worthy of, um, you know, speaking kindly about their physical body because they're unhappy with their physical body in some way. And it might even be a feature that you don't like. Okay. So you feel like your nose is too big, or you don't like, I don't know, like there's certain, you don't like your hands or something. Like there's certain things that you just features, you don't like all your freckles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think wishing those things away or focusing on those things really starts impacting your self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I've really noticed with people because body kindness is a cornerstone to my working with anybody, whether it's people who want to lose weight, whether it's athletes, whether it's adolescents. It's a piece of what I talk with people about always. And
Mm-hmm.
just even if they're really good at it, I just kind of keep it on the radar. Like, yep, keep
Mm-hmm.
doing those things. And I love how you speak about yourself in these positive ways. What's interesting is people believe that if they start accepting themselves more, it means they'll be stagnant and they won't reach goals and they won't change.
Right.
And I've actually found that if people have a higher self-worth and if people really like, I mean, get that, like, woo woo, like
Mm-hmm.
self-empowerment, like I am worth it and I'm
Mm-hmm.
watch me do great things and I love my body and all it does for me and I love this shit. And
Mm-hmm.
you use that,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the world is your oyster.
Right.
You really can like start moving forward and achieving things. And
Mm-hmm.
that thing that was holding you back, maybe that like feeling like you're not worthy of the effort or you're not worthy of the change or that you'll never make those physical changes. That's
Mm-hmm.
another thing. If you're
Mm-hmm.
no longer worried about like truly focusing on changing and punishing your physical body, all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden you start doing things because you actually enjoy doing them and they make you
Right.
feel good. It's more about how you feel about yourself.
Right.
And I'm telling you guys, I've seen this work for people where all
Absolutely.
of a sudden, and just a quick story, one of the first times that this kind of hit me in a professional sense was, this actually relates back to my friend Stacy that I told you about, the Care Bear stare, at the very beginning. She was teaching a class. She's a dietitian, by the way.
Okay.
And she was one of my preceptors, one of my mentors when I was still a student. And she was teaching a class on intuitive eating, which we'll get into that in another episode. But it's basically focusing more on listening to your body's cues and kind of
Mm.
trusting yourself around food versus having this very strict and rigid food rules and counting numbers and whatever. Well, in school, in dietetics, a lot of what we learn is numbers based and it's very specific into calories and calculations and all that stuff is helpful. But what about when it doesn't work for people? What do you do when the numbers don't match up and when people get bogged down and whatever?
Yeah.
So Stacy and I were having this conversation about this intuitive eating class that she was teaching. And I was still pretty skeptical. I was like, well, but you still have to do the calculations, right? And you still have to like count the calories and all this
Right.
stuff has to match up. And she said that she heard from a person that took this class. She heard from her like 3 months later. And this woman had tried losing weight numerous times over and never could just make it stick and could never find the method and the way for her to do it. And when she came to this class, she was like really feeling pretty crummy about herself and her ability to do it, but she decided to give it a try. And she came to Stacy like 3 months later or something and had maintained the weight loss that she had achieved through the class. And I was like kind of fascinated. I was like, well, what worked for her? And I'm expecting to hear like, oh, she found an app or she, she changed to the way she eats this or she
Right.
stopped eating out so much. Like I'm kind of still thinking along like the mechanics and the how-tos.
Right.
And Stacy said she finally let it go. She truly finally let all that baggage and expectation go and started
Mm.
trusting herself and accepting herself. And that's when the change happened.
Mm.
And it was I remember it so vividly because it was the first time that I really was like, what, that doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm really fascinated by this and
Mm-hmm.
how this works for people. So,
Right.
um, anyway, so that's kind of my roundabout way of saying if you change the way you view yourself and
Mm-hmm.
it starts with speaking more kindly, thinking more kindly about yourself, you can change your self-worth and your view of that, which can lead to all of these things that you are trying to
Mm-hmm.
achieve physically.
Yeah. No, 100% agree. And I think it comes down to like I think we really underestimate finding value in things. Like if let's see, what's a good example? Okay, so I'll think of like, when I was first starting a personal trainer, I was just trying to get clients, right? And I would like around the town I was in, it's a little town, Oregon, um, I would put out like lead boxes, right? Like enter your name and win a free session. And
Yeah.
everybody won a free session, right? And like I called all these people, and out of probably 60 entries, I think one person showed up for their free session.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, well, this is weird, right? But I think the thing about free is there's no value in free.
Yeah, there's no buy-in.
Like
Yeah.
if you get something, that you didn't have to pay for, it was just kind of passed along, like you don't value it as much, right? Versus if it's like the cost, you know what I mean? Like if you get some crappy old couch from a friend, and like yeah, let my dog sleep on it. I don't care, like, oh, I spilled something. Oh well, it was free. Like this isn't diminishing my investment in it because it's free and it's kind of almost worthless
You don't
anyway,
care
right?
as much. Yeah,
Right.
there's
Versus if you save up and get a really nice couch, like you're going to take care of that thing. You know what I mean? Like get your feet off my couch, man. No, you're not eating on it. Take that in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like this has immense value to me. So I want to take care of it. So
yeah.
to your point of like people feel like, oh, if I love myself, it's actually going to cause me to be stagnant. It's like you said, I think it's the exact opposite. When you find that you have immense value, you're like, wow, I really want to take care of me because I have a lot of value
Mm-hmm.
versus where a lot of us come from. There's no value, there's no purpose, there's no worth. Like, well, why would you take care of that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is that worth putting time and energy and work into? You know, it makes sense. I mean, I'm not saying those people don't. It's just from that perspective of if it doesn't have value, you're not going to take care of it. If you find that you have immense value, you really want to take care of you, you
Yeah.
know?
And one of the other things I really like about practicing body kindness is it really forces you to be more aware of what not just we're not I mean we're talking a lot about kind of looks and your physical body, but also like what signals is your body giving you?
Mm-hmm.
Body kindness can also be like taking care of your body's needs
Mm-hmm.
at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
we could talk about like hunger and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging and honoring hunger
Mm-hmm.
instead of denying it or
Mm-hmm.
ignoring it or trying to talk yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about sleep and how people just, I mean, drive their bodies into the ground, and I've done it, through training and whatever. Practicing some, and self-care is maybe another term for these kinds of things, but practicing that, giving your body what it needs and really listening to some of the signals your body gives you, um, can really help in this way. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, once you embrace that concept of I'm giving my body what it needs or I'm thanking my body,
Mm-hmm.
it changes your perspective on how you make those decisions around eating, around movement, around other forms of self-care.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. And I think there's something to be said for this is kind of veering a little bit, but I sometimes I think about the body kind of like a garden, right? Like we
Hmm.
think about like we stay stagnant or we stay put or whatever. Like we don't stay in one place. Like just
Right.
like a garden, right? Like if we're not tending to it, the weeds are growing, the plants are dying, right? Like
Right.
rotten food's falling off the plants. Like it doesn't just stay where you're at,
Yeah.
right? Like you're moving in one direction or the other, whether you think you are or not, or whether you like it or not. And so if we're not going to stay put, man, we might as well tend to the garden. We might as well pull some weeds. We might as well pick the fruit when it's ready to eat, because
Mhm.
otherwise Like we're just slowly, like physically, we're getting weaker. We're, getting
Mm-hmm.
less mobile. We're getting more likely to have some sort of serious injury that's really going to set us back. We feel worse. We sleep worse. We have less energy to go exercise. Like we're always in motion. We're
Yeah.
never just stuck. And we think a lot of times we're stuck, you know. Like, yeah, I've been here for a few years. Well, you're probably a lot different place than you were a few years ago, And so if we're moving one direction or the other, man, we may as well pull some of those weeds and tend the garden a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I have a question for you. Do you think I think it can be hard for people to find that value. It's like, what do you love about yourself? A lot of people it's like nothing, you know.
They might look at you like you're nuts too. Like, oh, I've told people the whole thanking my feet story before, and they're
hmm
like,
Yeah, okay, weirdo.
yeah, whatever, lady.
Yeah, right. But do you think that, or where do you tend to start from with like value? Do you tend to start with like, hey, let's talk through some things and try to find something that you feel in and of yourself has value? Or do you tend to push pause on that for a little bit initially and say, let's just do some work
Mm.
and let's give yourself some proof from doing the work that there's value and you have the ability to do things well? Where do you
So I would say I investigate that from the
mhm,
beginning.
mhm,
A lot of the questions that I ask when people are, especially people who are going to be in a coaching type relationship with me. So there's a lot of frequent, almost daily conversations.
mhm,
I will ask questions around really digging into their why, what's motivating this change? What are their kind of values and beliefs, and how are those playing out in a health realm?
mhm,
And it's very, I think quickly I'll start picking up on themes. So, for example, if somebody is very engaged with their family, and
mhm,
that's their nucleus, that is what their whole world revolves around,
mhm,
that becomes a big piece of their why. And when we talk about how that relates to a person's value, a lot of times people are more willing to care for others than they are themselves,
sure.
right? And
Yeah.
one thing I will investigate, especially with parents, is how I hear these things that you're saying about yourself, because inevitably these they'll say like, I don't like this, or I wish this was different, or
Mhm,
I just need to do this. And so there's all of this change talk going on of these things that I want to see differently.
mhm,
And if it's coming from a negative place, I'll pull that out into the conversation and say, I'm hearing these things, or you said this.
right.
How could you rephrase that? Like, let's say you were talking to your child about this thing, and maybe it
Mhm,
was with them. So sometimes removing yourself, it's much
right.
easier to praise and to encourage others, right, than ourselves. So I might pull that out and be like, how would you talk to somebody about this who is in this similar situation, and experiencing these thoughts and these
Right.
feelings toward themselves? How might you phrase this to them, or how might you
Mhm,
encourage them, or come from a place of compassion or kindness? Um, a lot of times I'll start with those kinds of conversations,
mhm.
just so people can, because a lot of times if they step outside themselves and sort of think of it that way, they're like, oh yeah, I would probably never say it that way if I was
Right.
speaking to a good friend or a
Yeah.
child, or
Mhm,
um and sometimes, with some people, I can usually get a feel from the first conversation if there's, and then like some of the notes that they'll put in the coaching notes between the two of us, I'll
mhm,
get a pretty good feel for how they speak about themselves or think
mhm.
to themselves, and some of that inner monologue that happens. If I start hearing and seeing things that I think need to be kind of dug in and addressed a little more. Otherwise, if they're in a pretty good mental place, I will do like what you said, kind of letting the work speak for itself.
Mhm,
Um, and I'll just kind of observe, and when I catch like, people that say those positive things, or say something that's like, you know, maybe starting down the role of, oh, this didn't work out today. but I did notice this positive thing, and they kind of flip it into a positive. I'll
Mm-hmm.
catch that and be like, oh yeah, see, this is a really good, you did this. And I'll kind of reflect it back to them to show
Mm-hmm.
like, this is a really productive way to look at this situation. And I like what you did here because,
Mm-hmm.
this actually helped lead you down the path you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, does that kind of answer your
Yeah, no,
question?
for sure. Yeah. And I agree. I think finding something most of the time, finding something initially right off the bat for someone to kind of grab a hold of like, oh yeah, I do that well. Or, I am thankful for that about my body is probably a pretty good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I love that sort of when a client begins to sort of flip those situations and like, yeah, this didn't go well, but that's a really exciting
Mm-hmm.
place. And I
Yeah.
think I'm sure, I know for me, I try to in any of those situations find what did go well about that. Or I mean, sometimes, it's what can we learn from this? How can we better strategize for next time? That kind of stuff. But I try to always find some sort of silver lining. And sometimes some of my clients kind of tease me of like, okay, kind of made that one up for, the positive. But I think there's usually something that is legitimate, I mean, and I think, like, I'll give you an example in a minute, but I think oftentimes we're too quick to find the criticism and we gloss over, but did something go well? You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, like for example, like let's say someone's working on evening snacking, right? And maybe we
Mm-hmm.
have sort of like a set list of, hey, if you're feeling hungry, let's pick from this list of evening snacks. Something we've
Mm-hmm.
worked through of, maybe it's a little bit lower calorie than the ice cream they go to every night or whatever. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're looking at, queuing in with, are you really hungry? Is it an
Right.
emotional need that you're feeling? Something like that.
Right.
And they'll say, okay, so I did the thing that I always do. I got the ice cream, but about halfway through the bowl, I went, oh crap, I was supposed to do this. And they're like, so I failed. And me, I'm going like, no, you
You
remembered.
caught, yeah,
You
you
did
caught
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't do it before the action until you do it a bunch in the middle of the action, right? Like that's
Right.
kind of how this like mindfulness about stuff works. It tends to work backwards. And it's like even if you did the whole thing and after you finish the bowl of ice cream and we're like, "Oh shoot. Yay, you remembered it." So like it has some sort of like level of like priority in your mind of importance where
Mm-hmm.
you remembered it. And even if it was after the thing and you still did the thing, you remembered it. And that's really important because you have
Yeah.
to do that before you could do it before, you
Yeah. You're
know?
building awareness and catching
Exactly.
those
Exactly.
patterns.
And every time you
Totally.
catch that, the next time you're probably going to catch it earlier, and if we have a week of at the end and in the middle, great. Because you know what? Next week, I bet you're probably going to do it before,
Yeah, you're going to start
you
catching. And
know?
the same thing with that like negative self-talk that
Mm-hmm.
people I read a really great article when I was in college about be your own anteater. ANT stands for automatic negative thought.
Mm, okay.
And it's great because I mean to me it was, it's kind of cute, like be your own anteater.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is you have these automatic negative thoughts. And, when it comes to body kindness or body positivity, this is very common where people just like every morning, the first thing you do, you look in the mirror and you're like, shit, I've got,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, this poking out here, or I hate this thing on
Mm-hmm.
my face, or I wish this was different, or I'm having a bad hair day. Like, you just kind of get into this like negative, negative, negative. And to your point, if you can start catching those
Mm-hmm.
automatic negative thoughts, or if you can start building some awareness around some of these patterns or behaviors, even if you've already gone down that path of like
Mm-hmm.
ripping yourself apart, physically looking at yourself in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
you catch it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it still happened, but you got it and you're aware of it now and you can think about it. And chances are, the more that you build that awareness, next time, like you said, you're going to start catching it like while it's happening. And then you're going
Exactly.
to start realizing, like, okay, I need to start reprogramming myself to think a little bit differently when I look in the mirror. And just, I mean, and really like, do it, practice it.
Right.
It's not just going to become this magical, one day you just change and you love everything about how you look and, your body. And it's just like, you might have to practice it, and you might have to do some intentional work where I'll ask people, what's one thing about your body that you like? If somebody really is like negative about everything about how they look and whatever, we'll start talking about what is one thing you like about your body. And I mean, it could be like the simplest things. I have really great teeth. They're very straight and white. It could be like, well, my fingernails are kind of pretty. It might be details, it could be a lot of different things, but just getting somebody to start, okay, your homework then is to practice this. Whenever you get into that negative body spiral, you focus back on this thing and you say, I actually really like this about myself. And it doesn't even have to be something with your physical self. It could be your sense of humor. It could be, I love that I'm really great with numbers and I'm like this math whiz. I mean, there's so many things you could practice in being kind to yourself that doesn't have to be your physical body.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then just in that concept, I mean, I think we haven't addressed it in this way, but we've addressed it in previous episodes, and I'm sure we'll address it a bunch. And I think we probably address it all the time in our work, is that, we doing something on a small scale is the only way to do it on a big scale. Right. And like that scale has to grow. Like if that's being more active or eating more vegetables or getting more sleep, right? Like if you can't do it a lot until you do it a little, and so it's like I can see maybe some people listening to this and just kind of being like, okay, like, oh, let me find, I love my nose. Great. That's going to change my world.
Blah.
Right. But the reality is that stuff really can, and again, it just goes to like this kind of overarching theme of like, we give no value to small things done consistently. And we only want the big thing, no, I just want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 30 pounds. Right. Okay. Well, you got to lose a pound first.
Right.
And then you have to lose it. Like 30 pounds lost is only made up of 1 pound lost 30 times. Right. And those 1 pound lost, guess what that's made up of? Like being more active, eating more vegetables, cueing in with your hunger cues and fullness. Like there's so much value in the smallest of things, because nothing significant happens without a bunch of little tiny things. And so it really can make a difference when you look at like, oh, I really love this one thing about myself. I really like this about my body, and I like this about my personality, because that stuff just kind of sits with you. And it's been very common that when I've had a client sort of just like recognize some of these small things, like a week later on a phone call, they'll be like, oh, hey, I thought of something else I like about myself.
Yeah. It starts opening that door.
Yeah. And then they have this whole like realization of like, yeah, there's this thing about my personality that I do a lot that I really like, and it's just like, once you start noticing some things, you're more likely to notice more of those types of things.
Yes.
And you're more likely to assign value to them. And so I understand if the stuff we're talking about feels a little bit hokey and cheesy and woo woo, right? Like I get that.
It's
but
not.
It's not. It's so important. It's so important.
Well, and I think you can start also listening for things that people, maybe friends or loved ones, say about you that kind of reflect those positive qualities, and accepting compliments more graciously and really embracing them. And on the flip side, I have found that when I am kind of in this place of like maybe needing a little more confidence in general, body confidence, or just, I don't know, whatever, personality, I will intentionally start handing out more compliments. And I mean, authentic, genuine compliments, not just like, whatever, making stuff up, but looking for those things in other people. Because in my life, it seems that what you give out comes back to you. And so when and I mean, think of how it feels to get a compliment. It's it's kind of nice. You kind of
That
straighten
feels
up a
great.
little more and you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of, it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially just one of those like out of the blue, from a
Mm-hmm.
stranger or somebody who has nothing to gain from
Mm-hmm.
telling you, I love your
Mm-hmm.
hair,
Mm-hmm.
but they say it and it feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I challenge you, if you are struggling with like, if the whole body kindness thing and you really can't find anything for yourself, start looking for it in other people
Right.
and give it life.
Mm-hmm.
Say it to other
Mm-hmm.
people because it
Mm-hmm.
feels really good for that other person to receive a genuine compliment. And chances are, the more you start seeing those things in other people, the
Mm-hmm.
more you will start realizing them for yourself.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I think that's a great point to bring up. Yeah, I think we just that awareness, whether it's to ourselves or to others, it's the same type of awareness, right? It's like the same muscle being stretched and flexed and trained. And so even if we're doing that for other people, I think,
Yeah.
like you said, we often wind up finding like, oh, you know what? I do that too. Or here's the thing about me. Or when someone gives you a genuine compliment, you're not like, oh, what, blowing it off. You're like,
Yeah.
thank you. You know
Thank
what?
you.
You're
Yes.
right. I do that well. And maybe we don't
Yeah.
say that out loud, but we internalize it. I am good at that. That
Yeah.
is something that I do well. Or thanks. I thought my hair looked great too. Thanks for
Right.
validating,
Yeah, like totally.
what I was
I do
thinking.
like it.
And
Yeah.
then I think on the flip side of that awareness, it's really common to see is when we start becoming aware of how other people talk negatively about themselves. And
Yes.
it can almost become sort of like a painful thing when you become really aware of it, of like, whoa, do you know what you're saying to yourself?
Yeah.
Like in just the subtlest of ways that so often get missed by most people who are around the person saying the negative thing, because a lot of us tend to kind of talk negatively about ourselves.
Hmm.
It's just accepted, and we don't even see it as negative talk. It's just like
Yeah.
we're just saying a thing. But we
And
start to
all
see that and recognize it in ourselves too, how often we're just like beating ourselves down.
and that's something I'll actually say to clients sometimes. If I catch them saying something about themselves or really internalizing a negative thought or saying,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, wow, that seems like a rather unkind thought or an unkind thing to say to yourself.
Yeah.
And when you use that word unkind, I mean, nobody strives to be unkind.
Right.
And so it's
Right.
almost like a wake up call like, oh, I never thought of it that way, that I
Right.
was being unkind to myself.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like
good
that.
stuff.
Good stuff.
I've one last thought.
Okay.
Do you know how you get a bikini body?
I do, but I'll let you tell it.
Put a bikini on your body.
Boom, bikini body.
So I think we should challenge Michael to do this next time. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know if you want to do that. That might happen. And I don't know if you like what you see. Some things you can't
we
unsee,
gotta
Erin.
we gotta keep it interesting. If you're gonna run out of hair eventually, and you can't keep changing that, gotta anyway.
Bald and in the bikini. I feel like we're zeroing in on what our listeners are wanting.
I know.
We're getting closer.
uh, back by popular demand.
The bald
Um.
bikini boy. Man.
So you gotta anything else? Any other thoughts?
Um, no, nothing to like expand on. I think there are a couple of sort of like practical things that we've given, for
Hmm.
you guys to kind of give a shot with. And I would just really encourage you to do that. I think a lot of times these kind of really simple exercises or practices can really have a profound impact on the way we see ourselves. So, and I would just encourage you to give those a
Yeah.
shot.
And let us know how it goes.
Please,
If you try a
please.
little body kindness or self kindness,
Hmm.
or if you start throwing compliments out to people and notice
Hmm.
a difference in how it makes you feel, please share because we would love to hear that.
Yeah, we would. We would.
Yeah.
Cool. So you want me, you mean in the Dane? I just
Meaning in the
mumbled that.
mundane.
Meaning in the
I was like,
mundane.
it's a good thing I know what you're talking about because
my
you have peanut butter in your mouth, like Mr. Ed. Like,
mouth forgot to work. Or I have one. I can go first. Either way.
Go.
Me? Okay. So this is actually last night. I made butter chicken, which is an Indian dish. Have you ever had that?
Yes, it's
So
amazing.
I was going to make curry and I couldn't find yellow curry powder. And I went to Indian market kind of down the road here and was talking to them. So I wound up kind of blending my Indian curry ingredients with like the coconut milk and potatoes and stuff
Why
with
not? It all
butter
goes
chicken.
together.
Yeah. But she was
Sounds
like, no,
amazing.
just chicken and the sauce and rice. And I was like, well, I'm doing it differently. So anyway, it turned out it was so good. Like Lila, who's 9, she took one bite. She goes, "This is my new favorite meal."
Oh,
Just instantly,
nice.
she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good!" And just
Good
we're
job.
sitting around the table, just over and over. We're all just like, "This is so good. This is so good." So I was really happy with it. But I love to cook. Like it's something I've always loved doing,
Yeah.
and I've said many times before that if I wasn't doing this kind of coaching I'm doing, I'd probably want to have like my own little cafe or something. I just love cooking and it's kind of like my happy place. And so last night as I'm making this like thing, I've never made Indian food, I've never made Thai food, I've never made anything like that before, right? So it's kind of all brand new spices and smells and everything, and just the whole process. And I just found like such joy in like I don't know, I'm almost will be 40 years old in a couple months. It's like it's really easy at this point in life to just kind of do things the way you do them, and it's just like I'm cooking something new or trying something different as a family. I'm just enjoying like these new like smells and everything and excited about this whole process that I've never got to do before. And so it was kind of like this thing that I love doing, but just sort of a new life to it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just found like a lot of meaning in just cooking that meal last
Cooking a
night.
meal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just very excited about
And
the whole
putting yourself
process.
into like a new, you know, sort of branching out. I think that's the other
Mm-hmm.
thing. A lot of people kind of get into
Mm-hmm.
their like comfort zone in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what is it about not wanting to experiment in the kitchen? Like so many people have this fear of like, oh, what if it tastes awful? And I'm like, well, whatever. Then
What if it
have a
does?
PB and J. Like it's
Right?
fine. You
Throw it
learned
out.
something.
Yeah. Make a
You know,
sandwich. Yeah.
or throw some like Matt will throw some hot sauce in it and be like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is great.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right?
I love that though.
Yeah.
And butter chicken. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very good. And
I
now I'm
love
like, okay, so like what other like Indian or Thai food
I
can we make, right?
know.
Like now I want to explore this whole thing.
Isn't
Yeah,
it exciting? I love
very.
trying some new spices and different things like harissa or
Mm-hmm.
um there's an Ethiopian spice called berry that I
Mm.
think I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's spelled like berry like the um nutrient deficiency. But it's not. It tastes
It's not,
it
it's
tastes very
different.
good. It's not. It's a spice. It's a spice blend, and I make these berry these Ethiopian lentils where the main spice is this berry, and it is like amazing. It's the only
Mm-hmm.
way I have really gotten Matt to love lentils. He's
Mm-hmm.
kind of lukewarm on them. Like he'll eat them, if
Mm-hmm.
I make them,
Sure.
but um, yeah, so experimenting with those new spices. And I love
Yeah.
those markets. Aren't those cool? Like you go into those
Yeah.
authentic
I
markets.
was just like looking around, walking up and down the aisles, just like there's so much stuff here I've never heard of,
I know.
that just like how fun would this be to
There's a
just
whole
try?
world of food that
Yeah.
you don't,
Yeah.
it's so cool. I love it.
And the lady at the store, she gave me this rice that was just unbelievable. It was basmati rice, but she was like this one in particular, like this is the one you want. And I was like, okay. And even just cooking, I was like, this rice smells
Oh,
so
really?
good. I was like, I've never thought rice smelled good before, but I
Right.
kept like every time I would stir it, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I can't wait for this. I'm so excited right now.
Yay. And
Yeah.
Lila's new favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So how about you?
So mine happened this morning, actually. I had a
Oh.
couple others that I was planning on using, but this one this morning, like, I mean, it made my day.
Mm-hmm.
I went for a mountain bike ride. I don't know, literally like half a mile from the road. So I'm just coming to a finish. And I could see this group up the trail, and it looked like a bunch of little kids. And so I like slow way down. I've got my bell going so they can all hear me going. And one of the adults with them saw that I was coming and said, "Oh, everybody step off to the side." Well, it ended up being this group of little girls. I don't know. It was like I don't know what it was, a little outing or excursion or something with and there were probably, I don't know, there had to be 15 or 20 little kids on the trail, and like, I don't know, 4 or 5 adults. And you know what it's like herding all these like whatever 5-6-year-olds off the trail. And so I stop and I'm just patiently kind of waiting, and they all were really cute. They kind of just step off all to one side, and they're all lining this side of the trail as it kind of curves down the hill. And I'm just like, this is great. It's like I have my own cheer squad all lined up. I'm kind of like joking with them. And as they get off the trail and I start rolling through, one of the adults goes, "Okay, is everyone ready? Yay!" And they start like clapping and cheering as I go through. And it was just like, it was the sweetest thing, because I mean, it reminds me of kind of, they don't know the meaning it had to me, because
Sure.
I lived for those moments in triathlon where just the crowd and the energy and that,
Sure.
People out here just to cheer you on and to like help you in your own personal endeavor. And here I am riding in the foothills on any given morning, and I just get this cheer squad, of course, little girls that I'm like, I hope you all are like empowered and like super like, proud of yourselves, and that you do awesome things with your lives. So that was my meaning. I was just like, this is, who gets this? Like a cheer squad
That's
on
awesome.
a, Wednesday morning ride in the foothills.
Heck yeah.
Rad.
That's awesome. I think we all just need like cheer squads randomly, don't we?
Right?
Just to, like, good job. Way to mow the lawn, Dad.
More cowbell. More cowbell.
That's awesome. I love it. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up, huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Keep the conversations and comments coming and feedback, let us know what you want to hear. And
send that stuff to middleish@gmail.com. That's our email, and we'll get that. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Have a good week.
Catch you next week.